Okay, so as we move into the session, the purpose of my dialogue today will hopefully take you away with some thoughts around kind of where we are as an organization at IBM to try and help you understand and migrate your business into a cloud environment, not because you have to, but because there's a requirement to bring together kind of three main constituent elements. One, modernize your infrastructure because your clients or your consumers are asking you to do that because they're placing demands on your organization that mean that you have to think differently, not about technology, but about the way in which you're interacting with them and what that means. How the fact that in our organization and in this marketplace we're seeing multiple different vendors driving a cloud-first environment because it's easier commercially, it's easier for a delivery perspective, it gives you agility. But in doing that, you then have multiple clouds that you as an organization need to manage and come under that. Typically, Gartner tells us that there are between 5 and 7 clouds in every single organization as a minimum, not including SaaS providers that you're using, Salesforce, Workday, various other different bits and pieces. So what does that mean to you and how do you manage that? How do you manage in a multi-cloud environment and what does that really mean? When you start to think about, well, I'm simplifying my organization because I'm moving all of the stuff that I've got my own hands on in my own data center and I'm bringing it to a public cloud environment. Well, if you've got multiple public clouds, how do you manage that multi-cloud complexity and how do you create that customer experience and bring that customer experience to the next level that they're expecting when you then have to manage that complexity? So I think many of you will have encountered this. You probably present something similar in your own organization that says there is a cloud that needs to be agile. It needs to drive and speed innovation and moving my existing applications that are in my data center today and making them available in the cloud doesn't actually just answer that solution. You need to look at how you modernize those applications, customer-centric, but how do you then actually integrate those platforms? Because that's what they become. Maybe even create industry solutions. You heard just a second ago there about the travel and transportation industry and Boeing is Rolls-Royce, my apologies, Rolls-Royce and the likes of Boeing who are starting to create that open communication and collaboration into starting to create industry clouds, sharing lots and lots of data and information to help them actually improve and advance their industries as well. We're starting to see that in manufacturing. We're starting to definitely see that in healthcare. So how do you start to move yourself through that evolution and what does that look like? How does that work? The average enterprise, not that such a thing ever exists, they're saying today that 1,000 plus cloud applications will exist. Anybody who's got more than about 2,500 employees, they think there's around 1,000 applications from HR-based cloud applications right the way through to delivering your actual products to clients and how that is delivered. 50% of that IT spend will be spent on cloud by 2020, and it's rapidly accelerating. Yet at the same time today, only 18% of that is being used in any kind of cloud infrastructure because 82% just need to keep the lights on. And that infrastructure and that spend, if that infrastructure is not actually sitting in often the CIO space, it's being used and spent, maybe not even consciously, in other parts of the organization. IBM just recently did an audit. I was with a client in the States just at the end of last year, and we went through their CFO's office to actually understand how much of their business was spent, how much of their expense was coming out in cloud. When we went through the ledger of the customer, they identified that there was about 35% of what they thought was CapEx being used in the lines of business that were actually being spent on cloud services. This was a regulated organization. They found out that 4 very large projects were using a Chinese cloud and 2 others were using a Russian cloud, none of which would pass any regulatory authority and approve their certification to be able to operate. CFO wasn't sure whether or not he could sign their statement of accounts and made a provision just to be safe. There's an example of some very, very, very specific outcomes that can result from cloud dispersion around your organization through the need to drive agility, through the need to be able to deliver to your clients quicker, faster. How do you bring all of that together? And how do you get those cloud applications, those services that your customers are demanding, your clients are demanding, but be able to manage that in a complexity of change and see, whilst also not taking that Uber or iPhone model, which is, well, I'm invented on the cloud, forget about everything else that's just existed. Forget about all the data that actually runs the IP of my organization. How do you bring all of that together and how do you make it work? So cloud, apparently that's the driver of business innovation, but how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, there's demands and there's challenges, and we need to help understand how that multi-cloud environment will come together. Not forgetting that even today in cloud, 2/3 of the business still runs on Java. 2/3 of the applications in a public cloud environment are still using some level of Java development. Yes, Kafka, Swift, all of the OpenShift technologies that are coming forward are hugely, hugely important. But the demands around secure, integrated applications and data across multiple clouds and being able to stand up as either the CDO, the CIO, the CTO, risk and compliance, and be able to stand next to it and say, I know that even the fact that I'm taking stuff from my public cloud, I've got some stuff on-prem and I've got stuff in third-party SaaS providers, I'm bringing that all together to create the application and give the customer value. I can stand next to that and know that it's secure, that I've integrated it, and I know exactly where the data is at each point. Cambridge Analytics are very, very well known right now, probably more than they would like to be, perhaps because they weren't quite secure, perhaps the data they weren't using in the application and the way in which they orchestrated that application using multiple cloud vendors was perhaps where they would like it to be. And the owner and the provider of some of that data is going to get to come to the House of Commons and explain himself. We'll try to do some things here at IBM whereby we do not use your data in a public environment, but we help you manage smaller data sets that are your data sets to drive new foundation and new change. We'll come on to that a little bit later. You also need to understand that there's an economic advantage of being in the cloud, right? I'm moving stuff to public cloud, I'm using public cloud services, I'm able to spin up that environment far quicker, and by the way, I don't have the burden of maintaining and supporting that as we go forward. Yet when you bring multi-cloud together, SaaS-based applications, born in the cloud applications, bringing all of that together and managing that in an infrastructure that you're responsible for and have to deliver becomes very, very tricky and very complex, just as much as your base data center infrastructure was at that time. And then how do you only support one approach or methodology to cloud? You can use my services, and you have to use my services in my public cloud, and we'll give you some of that data to export, but not all of it. How do you manage that when you've got responsibility to your clients and have to deliver value? So, as leaders that you are in this room, you need to be able to challenge the conventions of those architectures. How do you create common methodology and drive that, but also then create an agile engine for that rapid development? You heard earlier on about MVPs. They're absolutely key, right? The ability to stand something up and iterate quickly. Every morning you wake up, you have your Samsung or your iPhone, or maybe even your BlackBerry, if anyone still has one of those things. And it will tell you that there's some things that you need to update because those MVPs have been refreshing, and that there is more iterations and more releases of those applications. You need to take the new features down. They've made some fixes because they've watched how you've interacted. But how do you create that agility with the architecture that you need to drive that has latent legacy or enterprise applications that you need to keep driving? They're actually the foundation of that element. You heard earlier on about the product doesn't change, it's the digitization and the transformation I can add on top. How do you take that, take the new methodology that's out here, create the agility, but build that an architecture that is flexible enough to deliver to all of those imposters just the same? How do you do that? So we have three key principles within IBM from a cloud perspective that says, first of all, we have to deliver and help you support an open and flexible architecture. That's number one. Number two is that we look and respect at all of your data regardless of source and help you figure out and work through both a value and effort set of biases as to where best to place that so that you can most accelerate the insights in that data model. And then lastly, but hugely importantly, making sure that it's secure and compliant to the core. Not just, the cloud vendor of choice that you have me turn around and say, we're absolutely secure. Yeah, they're cloud secure, but is your data secure? Or absolutely, we're secure, but is the access secure? So thinking about both the identity and access, thinking about the physical infrastructure, and thinking about the application and the data that you own, each and every element of that, even some of the physical assets, to make sure that they're secure. You have to make sure it is secure across the spectrum, such that then your CFO, your CDO, your CSO can sign up and say, yes, this quarter when we're releasing, I know that we've released 5 new features or functions or applications. Our customers are going gangbusters and buying them up from us, which is fantastic. And by the way, we've delivered them in a secure and compliant way, and that we can maintain our auditory and regulatory position and be in the topper echelons of where we want to be as an organization. So, IBM's cloud gives you flexibility and choice. It's built for all of your applications. It's AI ready. It gives you the ability with data to work through that. And it's secure to the core, but it's multi-cloud, right? We are not, we'll put our hands up right now and I'll say we cannot deliver you 1,000 VMs actively spun up in the next 25 minutes. There are vendors out there who can, and they do it really, really well in the public cloud. But what we can do is we can understand your enterprise IT infrastructure, and we can help you build the cloud that you need and place the workloads in the right place in a secure environment that is learning from the data that you have in your space contained in your area, and drive that value in a multi-cloud architecture. Working with a number of our partners and a number of other third-party clouds, because I'd love to think that there was only one cloud in town, but there isn't. There's multiple, and you have placed strategic business in the right places for your workloads at that time, but you need to be able to extract and then harness that value and enrich that value and drive that value into change, take your customers' requirements and priorities and add more return on those. So why should I be talking to you about architecture? It's an old thing, the new clouds, they don't require architecture. You spin up an MVP, you're ready to go. But we have to be able to make sure that you've got some level of flexibility and stability, that you've got an element to be able to drive that innovation at pace, but still maintain those enterprise applications, and bring all of those platforms together into one common technology and understand what that means. Still drive personalization, still deliver, business efficiencies. And really what you're now starting to see is the requirements of infrastructure and the requirements of the business are actually on the same key areas and methods and messages. I need to have customer and market intelligence. My data needs to start being intelligent data. I need to have process improvements. The processes I'm using today to drive this multi-cloud environment also need to change and adapt. So we're now starting to talk a common language, and that starts to then drive that technology adoption and that technology change, creating smarter applications, driving and accelerating data-driven intelligence behind our applications. And what does that mean? And doing that in multi-cloud, deploying in Cloud B, having developed in Cloud A, and lifting and moving that application so that it can be high available and scale to 300,000 users and be compliant within your organization. So we build this flexible architecture. It allows you to decide and determine where the right workload is for the right destination. And the destination is the important piece here. You heard the gentleman who's talking about the Gatwick Airport. It's just not about the technology and the investment in the technology that's really, really key. It's what's the destination? How does that experience improve my client? How do I improve with biometrics that I can get through the airport quicker? I don't have to have tickets and passports and paper and visas. They understand who I am because we've implemented a piece of technology. It might be cloud driven, may not, but it gets the human through the airport quicker. Getting the human through the airport quicker is the outcome that we need to, that's the destination. The journey, we need to then help you establish where the right place is. Is it multi-cloud? Is there a prescriptive approach that biometrics may or may not be mandated with the UK government? I don't know, right? And it may then say, right, if we bring all of these things together, how do we drive and pick the right open standards, the right cloud native approach, and where do we then place that workload to be able to drive that? Is it private cloud? Do I actually want modern technologies, open, scalable infrastructure that will allow me to connect to multiple services within my organization and outside to be able to then drive that model. But do I actually need to run it privately? Why? Because I have to explain to multiple different regulatory bodies that I have processed this many people at this time, at this pace, and these are the humans, but I don't supply all the data, I only supply the thing that makes me compliant. Or can I quite safely put it into a public cloud, because it's economies of scale. I don't have that formal regulation behind me that I have to be compliant, I have to be secure to the same levels. I still have to do those things, but maybe to not the same levels. Or do I need to dedicate a portion of a public cloud because I need some kind of software-defined wall that will protect me to drive that? Or actually, do I think through with each of those steps on that flexible architecture? Do I look at the investments that I've already made and actually decide that, you know what, I need to keep this within my own organization right now until such time that I feel confident that I can move it seamlessly to a different destination? So it's looking at value, effort, culture, people, process, business requirement, and figuring out which is the right place to go and why. So it built for all your applications. There are three different places, and you really want to think about, when I look at the organizations that we work with every day, we're not asking them to say everything is cloud, not at all. It's what's the end goal? How do we work back to the client requirement, and then figuring out whether public, dedicated, or private makes sense, and driving that with data at the forefront of that discussion, either structured or unstructured. Where do we take that data and really augment that data to add more value to the end process? So there are elements of the infrastructure that you have today and in your business and your organization that you'll never put into a cloud environment. It's complex applications. A great example would be many insurers that I work with do not touch their life insurance policies. They're 25-year applications. It will cost you 20+ million to take it off a mainframe or a large, HP nonstop. They're running quite happily. It costs far too much to move it to somewhere else. Leave it where it is. Computer workloads that are very, very high intensity and are running in a very stable environment and are not virtualized. There are then elements that you say, do you know what? I've got some latency concerns really around these applications. I've got some compliance and security applications that I really just want to keep here in terms of data. I want to hold them in, and then we would support a private cloud. And then there are a whole myriad of things that will, through both economics and through value, you would position into a different part of the business, and we would suggest that really are great candidates for public cloud. But again, focusing on that flexible architecture. What are the right approaches to that destination? Where is the openness that I want to play? How much do I want to expose to other vendors? How much enrichment can I get with the data that I've got, and can I expose it to other places? And how do I work with those multi-cloud SaaS, born in the cloud vendors, and extract the information I've got with them to build that data model out that really makes sense, and work through all of that? So this is all about this value and effort discussion. So you've got the workload and you think, right, I can understand that workload. Do I need to modernize it? Question number one. What does the data look like, and how do I monitor and monetize that data? Is there things in here that I can take forward? And then you need to look at all of the other constituents: culture, organization, service, governance, and how do I bring all of that together that understands then what the value and effort looks like that we have? This was a piece of work that we did with a major European bank. We also did another one with a major European telco provider. And we looked at those 5 characteristics, right? The workload, the payload that we're actually moving or driving, the data characteristics, the governance, the requirements around that, the culture of the people and the processes and the clients that will actually interact with this, the ultimate cost, and then very much to the end, the value versus effort. And then in the top right, huge candidates, we moved those workloads. We didn't move any of the rest. More importantly, we didn't measure the cost in real terms in dollars for the client, but we measured the customer success and their NPS scores, their customer SAT scores. Customer SAT scores were up 30 points. The stickiness of their clients and the portfolio investment that they took forward was up about another 15 points. It was hugely, hugely valuable. So, I'd like to ask a quick question of you, which is, have you any started analysing which workloads you should move to the cloud based on value and effort analysis? A quick yes or no on the app if you've got that kind of point of view. We've built a dedicated approach based on those 5 dimensions, based on a number of pieces. It's just a quick piece here, but it's called the Cloud Adoption Playbook. And it really looks at those areas around how do you work through that digital disruption, that transformational journey, and how do you work in that multi-cloud environment that looks at how do we create that value with the client, and how do we create an integrated set of applications, an application that in fact doesn't sit in one place but has componentry that sits in your enterprise applications today, that drives and runs in a public cloud environment at the end user interface, but also then calls on third-party technology to add that value. How do you bring all of that together and create that single application? Because the application of the modern world really will look like this as you go forward. It will not be in one place. It will not have one interface. It will not have one way of getting in and getting out. It will have multiple different facets. And how do you extend the value of the on-premise assets you've got today but modernize those? Because there is a significant amount, there's 82% of your investment today going into those, of which still 2/3 of it are Java driven. And so what we do is we try and help you with integration technologies that will help you get the value from your existing enterprise IT, but also the third-party cloud services and the third-party clouds you've got to be able to bring all of this together, whether that be app integration, core messaging integration, high-speed transfers, lots of different ways that we can help you take advantage of all of that and create the enrichment of your data. And when you've got that data, not recreating it, but knowing where the sources of that data are, complex, structured and unstructured, how do you then take that value? And then we take those and then help you pull together a number of different ways of analyzing, managing, and taking that into a different set of choices that you can then bring forward Cloud Private. Now, IBM brought out Cloud Private about 6 months ago. It's a rapidly growing part of our business. But it's a capability, it's a stack of software that will allow you to run, the best way I can describe it is it will allow you to run a cloud that's identical to the characteristics that you will have in a public cloud. So it's an open standards-based Kubernetes containerized environment that will basically allow you out of the box to do DevOps, do management, and basically allow you to lift and move workloads between public and private clouds. So deploy in Cloud B, having done all of the design, run, test, and manage in Cloud A, and literally lift and move that across. Because perhaps there's a requirement under regulation, security, or just scale that you actually need to run concurrently hundreds of thousands of users at any given point in time. IBM's Cloud Private technology gives that, and it minimizes the risk, but gives you all of the features and benefits of public cloud. And it, again, literally allows you to create that kind of portal that allows you to pull and drop forward. Working with a number of clients right now, Hertz have just moved all of their loyalty program from a public cloud environment. They've kept the interface, the user interface on the public cloud, allows them to continue to spin up new application versions. But all of the back end, all of the enterprise data that they want to contain, all of the gold membership details, etc., they're holding that in enterprise IT and they're bringing it all together in that private cloud stack, and they can scale it. They can handle peak workloads really quickly. They can manage elasticity very, very well, and it's at a price point that's very, very similar to a public cloud environment. So we talked about infrastructure, talked about different ways of assessing the cloud, understanding that there are more than one, and how do you bring all those complexities together. But how do you correlate all of the data that you've got in 6 or 7 different places, 8 different places, manage that effectively? The first thing we suggest is that we help you take your data and make it simply accessible. Understanding that you've got them in various different sources, we're not asking you to recreate a different version of the truth, but we help point to the whole data model and then help you then scale those insights by being able to create an AI ladder. And when we talk about an AI ladder, we talk about creating that data foundation, then adding on top of that data foundation analytics. So I'm not talking here about, learning and machine learning and all of the great new AI that comes with it, but actually just pulling corollary information together from the data that you've got, structured and unstructured, starting to recognize patterns, starting to understand pieces of information that are coming from that data that exists today. More, what do I have in my environment versus what will it tell me that is going to happen next? Then we add a layer of AI. Right? It's rule-based on your data, not on anybody else's, not sharing it to anyone else. This is specifically your infrastructure and your data. It's looking at your sample set, not millions of others. We don't pull or extract any of it. It is contained within your organization, but then help you look at elements around diagnostic data, then looking at predictive, then looking at prescriptive. So first of all, you've got lots of planning tools, lots of systems, and we can help you create that planning environment. That is really 25 years in the making, right? It's all of your data warehouses, your BI intelligence. It's been around for many, many a while. But then with that data all then understood in multi-clouds, we can help create that descriptive view. What do I have? Where is it? Regardless of its state, regardless of its position. Then we can help with the diagnostics. What happened? How do we augment some of that data in an unstructured fashion to understand what happened where, to create that diagnostic view? We can then bring forward then to some elements, how do we predict what's going to happen next? How do we predict, for instance, we've been working recently, and we'll come on to it in an example, how do we predict how much it's going to cost you to get divorced? How's it going to cost me to go and speak with my lawyer about, moving house and, foreseeing some of the complexities of this particular house purchase? They typically go, it'll cost you £3,000, or to get divorced, actually given, it's between £5,000 and £7,000. Well, how about if we take the ability to take all of the data sources that we've got as a company, take all of understand exactly what it looks like and describe its position, and then diagnose some of that such that we can say, do you know what, that particular address on that particular street, we actually understand it's going to cost £4,600 to move house, and it'll cost you that because we're going to have to do these additional things because we know about this particular outcome over this particular time. And then if you can even get there, what should we actually do differently through prescriptive analytics? Typically, we're really starting to enter new ground there. Clients that we work with today are still trying to identify and manage a descriptive and diagnostic position. If we can help you then move with multi-cloud, truly understanding that whole data model, getting you into the predictive and prescriptive space, that's where our cloud will actually bring value with some of our tools and capabilities. And how do we do that? How do we take that, prescriptive view? So we use Watson, and we bring Watson together. Watson is really all around taking your data set, no matter how small or large it is, and adding expertise and learning, right? You have to train it. We're not purposely not bringing, and this is our differentiation, we're not bringing everybody else's data to you. It's helping you gain more differentiation from your business by looking at things around your industry. So one of the things that we have done is we've scaled expertise and learning in cancer care because of some of the sharing in that industry that they have been prepared to do, and taking some of the historical cases in a hospital, in a franchise of hospitals, and bringing those together, our healthcare trust, and bringing together the acceleration of predictive behaviours, diagnostic-based behaviours, and learning from them to rapidly increase the way in which we can help clients or patients be treated for cancer care. And we've seen some significant improvements on time to diagnosis, time to treatment, and improvement of treatment responsiveness. The other one that is much more kind of, in some respects, practical in industry is the ability to drive expertise and learning. How many times have you thought, I want that particular engineer to come and repair this particular part of machinery because I trust him, I know him, he has the understanding of my environment, and he has been on site 4 or 5 times. Sometimes that's not always possible. He's on vacation, she's on vacation, they are unwell, they've retired. They've got 25 years of latent knowledge, but they can't transferably move that forward, and it also doesn't give you that comfort feeling. But what we've been able to do is take experience-based know-how, years of manuals that are, on a 2-week training program, pull all of that together within your organization and take the learning of the individual, the technical documentation, bring all of that together into one place, taking your data, that whole spectrum of your data, diagnosing it, training it, so that the individual has an ability when they walk on site to know your infrastructure, to know your business, to know your client reaction, because of the things that we've been able to train the systems to do. So when they come to do those repairs, they come to do the fix, they come to improve your organization, they're doing it with contextual relevance much, much more than before. And then enriching interactions on a commercial or a retail level are pretty well known, but we're now really moving things far more forward into natural language and actually using advertising to help you answer questions real time. Ask the Experts built into advertising on third-party presences, because we've been able to understand the top 6 or 7 things that your customers know that you're going to want to give them information with. So actually extending the reach of your organization into different parts of the world and enriching that shopping experience, not with you bought this, 5 other people bought that, but actually taking customers' inventory from prior purchases real time forward, but using natural language. And then lastly, really understanding customer service at the next level through being able to derive and change the behaviors of our clients over time. I talked about security, and we're proud at IBM to be able to say that we are truly secure across the business. As I said, identity and access, the actual physical cloud, but also then each of the application levels. We're the only vendor that is a security firm and a cloud provider. We're the only vendor that has 8,000 dedicated security experts and consultants that look at every single element and aspect of your cloud. Many clouds will secure the cloud. Many clouds will secure the cloud and do it very well, but they will leave it to you to do the application or the identity. And we provide that secure DevOps lifecycle. So like as I said, data built for your application where you need it most, and then secure to the core. I'll jump over to this. So we can hopefully help you with rapid innovation. We have the ability to push you into public cloud environments or private. We can help you integrate all of those apps together with messaging, application integration, taking high-speed file transfer, bringing all those disparate elements of your organization and bringing them together. We can help you in leverage the existing investments that you've got. The investment that you've spent, the 82% of your budget, where that goes today, we want to maximize that return. We want to make sure that you're doing all of that you're security compliant, you can stand up and look at your peers and say, we've done this with the best in the industry, and we've got a very, very good, strong infrastructure in place. A few small examples of kind of where we're helping clients. ODF Energia in Spain, open market, deregulated in a couple of areas before they then created 3 or 4 different energy firms to run in the same space. Needed a completely different change of process, did not want to build an enterprise infrastructure, knew that they were going to have to work with tier 2 energy providers, tier 3, needed a marketplace where they needed to change contracting, change process, worked with us on a business process technology in the cloud, gave them far, far quicker ways of contracting, made contracts easier to consume, created a brand new workflow based on what that customer destination need to look like, and we then built through into a cloud solution. Dramatically improved customer service and increased contracting speeds. Family law partners, I just talked about these. How do you predict how much it's going to cost me for that interaction? Company based in Brighton, they've saved thousands of pounds for their their clients by being much more precise. They've also saved themselves thousands of pounds a year themselves by understanding far clearly how much it's going to cost. So fixed price engagement on house moves, will engagements, divorce, etc., and being able to take forward analytics on the data that they've got in their organization to be much more predictable, much more diagnostic in their approach to how it would cost them to run their business. And it helps their customer be far less emotional in the engagement. You call a lawyer, you don't call a lawyer for fun, right? You call a lawyer because you've got something that you've got to do. And it's typically often unpleasant. Even moving house is stressful. So it's taking the emotion away from the customer because they're very, very clearly understood in their engagement and how they go forward. Bond IT, very, very difficult to build a customized set of portfolios for a income portfolio for a client, right? It takes a huge amount of private data, huge amount of change in the portfolios of investment that have been made. What we did was we used our technologies on a multi-cloud environment to bring together a number of different algorithms that helped create 3 different portfolio options based on usage and predicting where to go next. It meant that the analyst could go straight out to the client and look at a different set of options that we would predict for them. They could turn around and say, actually, we think this one's good, or they could reject them all and build their own. But it has rapidly improved yields for their clients. It's rapidly improved accuracy for portfolio management. It really gave them a huge amount of benefit. And then the last one is Force Manager, right? So I could have put some huge big client names up here. I just didn't think it was a lot of value. I thought I'd work with some of the kind of more niche players that we've done because they're much more specific in their customer outcome. And Force Manager really is all about building better relationships with our clients. So what we did here was we took an application, and like I described about creating that latent knowledge that's buried deep within your organization. We brought all of that together, and we've built an application that is specific to them based on AI. And basically it augments their CRM system, and it allows them to be able to figure out what the next best chance to go after. They've got 4 opportunities to go sell into their clients. How do they go take that forward? And it basically creates a best next action opportunity management system, augmentation on top of their CRM solution, which was a little bit back level. And it's given them sales productivity improvements and drive. I'm not going to touch on this for too long, but this basically says it's not just IBM who thinks that we've got some differentiation here. The market is now starting to see that we are one of the key players in town. And I will close with saying IBM's cloud is differentiated. It's a multi-cloud environment. It will help you manage your multi-cloud. It's built for all of your apps. It's secure to the core. And we bring analytics to the party to help that discussion. And happy and open to any questions you may have.